To describe Gene, somebody had asked him, well, what do you do? He kind of shrugged and said, I like to help people. 5 words, that's kind of an accurate description of Gene. He likes to help people.
He's like a walking encyclopedia. I just feel that Gene's very worthy of whatever praise anybody can give him because of what he's done for the farming community.
My dad just loves what he does. He loves, being a part of the agriculture community. He loves the people that he works with. To him, it's not, like I would say, it's almost not a job. It's almost like a hobby for him,
In 25 years with the Extension Service, Gene McAvoy helped farmers across South Florida make the most of their land. But his commitment to serve others began long before he arrived in the Sunshine State. Gene was born in Orange, New Jersey, just outside Newark. He spent the first decade of his life living in the city before his family moved to more rural southern New Jersey, where young Gene spent his summers working on local farms.
The only thing when I was a teenager, if you wanted a summer job, was pick tomatoes, pick strawberries, pick peppers, and so I got involved in agriculture that way, picking peppers and tomatoes for a local farmer. When I went to college, they asked me what I wanted to study, and said, I don't know, I guess agriculture. That led to a career that, I never regret.
Gene earned a bachelor's degree in plant science from Rutgers University. After graduation, he pursued a calling that led to a life of adventure and service to others.
As I said, I received a lot of help to go through school. I did well in school, and I received a number of scholarships. And when I graduated college, I felt a moral obligation to pay back my debt to society. And my option to do that was to join the Peace Corps.
In the Peace Corps, Gene headed off to the West African nation of Niger, where he and his team worked to create community gardens with the locals, helping to improve their diets and create sources of income. While there, he learned both French and the local Hausa dialect, which after his time with the Peace Corps ended, helped him secure a job with U.S. Aid. A few months of downtime back in the U.S. led to a fateful meeting.
I went back to New Brunswick, where I'd gone to school at Rutgers, and a buddy of mine was going into the Peace Corps, and he was living in a cooperative house. So my friend Rick said, hey, why don't you come and stay with us? Or stay with me, you could sleep on my couch in my room. A couple nights later, Donna shows up at the door and says, Mr. Rick, it doesn't work this way. You can't just bring this guy in here, we got to vote on him. We don't know him. And he said, Miss Donna, trust me, you're gonna love him.
In time, Miss Donna Buffalino would become Mrs. McAvoy. After a second stint in Africa, the couple returned to New Jersey, where they would begin a family, and Gene would earn his master's degree in horticulture. While starting a PhD program, however, a professor clued Gene in on the chance of a lifetime.
The pay was real, it was 3 times what I was making at Rutgers University. Free house, free car, tremendous opportunity. Was working with vegetable growers to develop an export market, really right up my alley. So we took the opportunity, took the leap of faith, and went to the island of Jamaica.
The young couple started a co-op with a group of 7 farmers that would eventually grow to over 300, producing hundreds of thousands of pounds of produce to be shipped around the world each week.
I guess, you might say we helped them, and they helped us and looked after us and took us in, and we really felt at home there.
Sadly, the changing political climate in Jamaica cost Gene his job, and the family was forced to return to the U.S. without a clear plan.
At that time, I had a volunteer who was an extension agent in Pennsylvania, and we were sitting around one night, and I was kind of crying in my beer, saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been doing this for 14 years, and, they told me I don't have a job anymore. And he said, you don't know this, but you've been doing extension work your entire career. Whenever you get back to the United States, wherever you go, you find the local extension office, and you'll get a job there. It wasn't as easy said as done. When we came to Florida, I started applying to jobs, and I literally applied to every county in the state of Florida. A couple times I was told I was on the short list, but I was never called in for an interview.
Following another 2-year job in Africa and a brief stint with the health department, Gene finally made his way to Extension.
And so Donna said, why don't you call the university? So I called the personnel office, human resources, and said, hey, this is Gene McAvoy. I've applied for a lot of jobs, but I've never received an interview. I just wonder if there's a fatal flaw in my resume. And I could actually hear the gentleman moving papers around. And he said, no, everything looks good. The next week, I got an offer for 3 different jobs.
I was expecting a call from somebody, and I noticed there was a message on the answer machine, so I pressed the button, and okay, it wasn't the call that I was looking for. I remember my dad came home that day, and we were eating dinner or something. He said, was there any messages on the call? I said, oh yeah, there's somebody from the University of Florida or something. And he's like, wait, what? They called? You gotta tell me these things.
We had a vegetable position where tried to hire some people to take that job, and we just had a little difficulty getting people to apply for it. Finally, in 1997, we had 2 people apply for it, and Gene was one of them. And he really come across as a real strong candidate. And what made me really impressed with him is he already had commercial vegetable experience. And so that was important in my opinion, and it proved to be a real plus for him in his career.
Working overseas really helped me in Extension in that, I learned how to work with people of diverse backgrounds, of different educational levels. I learned that, people are basically the same around the world. They have, basically the same needs and wants. So when I came back to the United States and got involved with Extension, even though I had no Extension background and really didn't even know what Extension was, I had 12 years of working with people.
Gene quickly built a reputation as a hard-working, friendly, and knowledgeable figure with a passion for helping others. Aside from his work in the field, Gene busied himself with the publication of the South Florida Pest and Disease Hotline, a bi-weekly newsletter that would see over 1,650 readers by the time Gene passed it on to his successor.
He was very religious with that newsletter, getting it out, and I read them, and they were extremely beneficial to the industry, and I got a lot of compliments on that.
It gives a survey for the farmers all over the state as to what diseases and bug infestations are coming in and what you need to be looking out for ahead of the time. He did a very good job for a very long time on that.
Within a year, Gene was contacted by Florida Grower magazine to expand the newsletter into the Pest of the Month column. Through these publications, Gene was the first to report on several pests and diseases that could threaten Florida's agricultural community. As Gene's experience and expertise grew, so did his responsibilities. In 2004, he became one of the first 2 regional specialized extension agents. The next step of his career came in 2005, when he took over as the County Extension Director for Hendry County.
Dallas at that time was retiring, and basically came down to, do we want to get somebody else in from outside that we don't know? Or would we rather take responsibility for ourselves and, one of us in the office step up and assume the position of director?
He had that kind of leadership ability with what he was already doing. And was I involved in his hiring? I did my very best to see to it that he got hired.
Outside of his work with the Extension Office, Gene found time to be involved with several associations, including the Florida Fruit and Vegetable Association, the Florida Association of County Agricultural Agents, and the Hendry County Cattlemen's Association.
I met Gene somewhere between 25 and 30 years ago when he came to Henry County. Gene and I are both officers and on the board of directors of the Cattlemen's Association. He's been a pretty solid role model, not only for his family, but for every kid around here. And I don't know how many scholarships he's helped fund. Don't know that it's 4 digits, but I guarantee it's 3.
In 2019, it was time for Gene to retire from the Extension Office, but it wouldn't be for long. Within 10 days, Gene was contacted by Dr. Jack Payne of UF-IFAS and asked to become the Associate Director for Stakeholder Relations in Immokalee, a position he served for the next few years. It was during this time that Gene was also elected President of the National Association of County Agricultural Agents. His tenure coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic, which presented challenges that Gene and his team met with hard work and innovation.
You know, we had for 120 years as an association, we had a National County Agents meeting. And, you know, I felt that we just could not do this thing.
After working day and night for a month, the annual National County Agents meeting was held virtually for the first time.
We had a bigger attendance virtually than we had at a real in-person meeting, and we did it for no cost.
Even now, retired twice over, Gene continues to serve the agricultural community with his consulting firm, Have Gun Will Travel, LLC.
I feel he's been a tremendous help with us at this facility. I'll be retiring, and he's trained my son who will be taking my place. So we still call on him and tell him to come help us out.
In a lot of ways, you know, in my position, I often served as the mouthpiece of the farmers in the area. So anytime there was a freeze, a hurricane, news agencies would, you know, call me. You know, we personally went without electricity at our house for 31 days after Hurricane Irma. It was pretty rough going, but, you know, my farmers were going through the same thing, and, you know, I couldn't just leave them and, you know, not help them. And the only way I could help them, you know, I couldn't make their crops whole again, but I could tell their story.
He's not a very vocal person, but when it comes to the agriculture industry and local farmers, and he's quick to point out, you know, how important what they do is and the impact they have on our economy on a state, national, and local level.
I wouldn't look back. I have no regrets. Extension is really the best job in the world. You know, I've got to work with many wonderful people and professors. I like to think that I made a difference in the lives of a lot of people, not only in Florida, but around the world. I would do it all over in a heartbeat and recommend it to anybody else.